Hello, everyone. This is Jason here with Church B Podcast. Here with me is Corey Alderin. I had a discussion with him over last year, and we actually were discussing the whole movement of changing videos, long form videos to short form. And in fact, I wrote a e-guide on that, and his product was one of the products that we reviewed and we really liked. So from that conversation, I wanted to kind of dive in and talk a little bit more with Corey, and to figure out, and for him to share with us, some of the things that he have learned when it comes to just a church space, digital strategy, and how to implement AI. Corey, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for
Great,
having me
great.
here.
Thank you for joining us. And so let's just dive in. When I look at your bio, you are a serial entrepreneur, right? And you have been building products for a long time. So tell us a little bit about that journey and then what led you to focus on the church space.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I did that had any sort of success online was building content websites. They were devotionals along with a Facebook page, and we built one of the first Facebook pages very early on to that was for churches that reached 5 million followers on it, and so we were. I got a really early start in social media. That was back when a follower really mattered. When you post something, almost everybody saw it. It
The
was great.
golden days.
Yeah, yeah. We crashed our website many times every when we would post something on that page. Uh, as everybody knows, that dwindled over time, and now you reach I don't know 5-10% of the people when you
Unless you
post
pay,
something,
right? You have to
or
pay
you
to
pay.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or you pay. Uh, so seeing that sort of decline, uh, I thought software was going to be the thing that I should teach myself how to do or I thought software was the next thing that probably was better. It was going to be, it's a little bit harder to get into. And so I wanted something that was a challenge. And so, uh, I taught myself how to code. And one of the first projects that I did was a design platform for authors. It's still out there. I don't do the day to day of that, but it's called BookBrush. That has it's a lot like Canva for authors, basically. Uh, and that was a very successful product. Worked well. My business partner and I both thought it didn't really need both of us in it anymore, and so we were brainstorming what idea to do next. And um, that's the short story is that's where Sermon Shots came from, basically. So
Would you not say that we do need more Christian minded companies, faith driven companies that build software for churches? Or should we, as a church space, depend on the bigger companies or those larger companies to build product? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I think we definitely shouldn't depend completely on them. I would love to see more and more people thinking about how can we make things specific for the church. I I actually think the church space, if we were to innovate, there is plenty of an opportunity to make a living and produce something that's actually valuable for in the church space. So I think that it, if there's an opportunity, there is the ability to have a great business in the church space.
And what I recognize, have you ever seen this pushback where when people hear, okay, sermon shots or these solutions, we don't need that. I have a cousin or I have a brother who can do this or so and so I have, and then they push back against paying for something, but yet still, when you implement this built solution, that this internal solution, it has so much moving pieces. It requires the person who set it up to get it done well. But if someone, you cannot really train volunteers to get it done. So this is what I'm dealing with this camera,
Yeah.
and in that I required like three different devices just to make it work, and it
Hmm.
doesn't always work. Whereas me paying a little bit extra would have gotten me what I wanted. And so that's kind of something I've seen in churches where a lot of times advice are given on technology that comes from somebody that is more IT and more
Mm.
tech leaning. Have you seen that in your church experience or in your entrepreneurship?
Uh, I've probably been at fault for bad decisions like that before as well. But
Oh,
yeah,
you're the guy.
I think it's in some people's nature, right? And the churches are in a unique place sometimes where you have to be very careful with your budget, right? And some people maybe push that a little too far, I think. Uh, and yeah, sometimes you spend a little bit more money, and it would have saved you over the year hundreds of hours, right? And then if you look at it in that way, where it's like I saved myself $200, but I've spent 10 hours a week
A
doing it.
week,
Yeah,
recurring.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And then when it
So
breaks, I have to call the guy who set it up because he has the technical expertise. I kind of train other volunteers, so then I'm stuck.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
What? Let's switch to like the church space. So you actually work within churches. You have a passion for the gospel. You're a Christian. What are you seeing generally that you think is working well in the digital space that churches are doing that is like, okay, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we weren't here, but this is where the church is heading. This is how they're using these different techniques. What are you seeing that is working well outside of AI that you like?
I feel like there is this thing happening in the church space of where there's a bigger set of churches that are wanting to be ahead of the curve instead of way behind on the curve on things technology related. Uh, I My hypothesis to this is that during COVID, people realized how far behind they were on things, and they had to scramble so much to get just on par with where the non-church space was for technology. That I feel like people have like they've learned in that okay, maybe we do need to be like ahead of the curve, or not even ahead of the curve, just on pace rather than so far behind, and adopt things a little bit earlier, at least test. So it feels like that's happening in the church space, and
I
so
definitely
that's
agree.
yeah,
I
that's
I
exciting.
call it the pre and the post COVID era, right?
Yeah,
Because the mindset of many church leaders have shifted when they realize that everything they hold on to as the old school way, the old time religion, all I need is this could be taken away. And then what? Right? Then the building, you realize the building is not the church. If you can still kind of connect with people is important. So I do think attitudes have shifted. I was prepared to actually have articles and pushback on AI is not the devil, is not the mark of the beast. But in listening to one of your other podcasts, I think you hinted at. I think people are a little bit more aware. They are not as pessimistic. They're not. Have you seen? Do you get a lot of pushback when you interact with maybe leaders and pastors and other church users and staff in terms of their hesitation, especially when you go out speaking to them, not those who come to you who wants a solution, but have you what temperature are you seeing when it comes to technology and AI?
yeah. I think when it comes to AI, you're right, and I do think that hesitation is still there. A little bit, but a lot less than when we first started using AI. I think people are starting to. But I think people are starting to see that AI, not lumping AI, the term, into this one general purpose thing. I think early on when you said I'm an AI software for churches, a lot of people's instant thought is, "Oh, you're having AI create your sermon like that," and
Yeah.
and that's an area I still to this day like it's not creating, right? And I will say I'm that's not where sermon shots is. It's not in the sermon creation process. But I think a lot of people early on, that's what they went to. But AI can be used for so many. It's a wide range of stuff. And so I think what people are starting to see is as they learn all the different places where AI can support, people are starting to see, okay, there are some use cases, I guess, where AI actually makes sense. It's not It's not replacing, you know, the Holy Spirit's discussion into what you're making, right? Like there's certain areas where that's happening. I think that's some of the biggest concern. So if you think about the areas where it can be helpful, I think I'm starting to see more people like open up to the idea.
The funny thing is, I am seeing the people who are my friends. I have a very diverse age group of friends on Facebook, for example, the ones that I taught who used to cry wolf against anything that was a technological advancement, they're the ones having so much fun with AI generating images. So it's like, oh, we got you right.
Yeah.
Though you cannot really come and say it's a devil, but I think I've heard something you shared before. How would you get? But I would like you to say it again. How would you get a church who is hesitant or who have no clue or still in the dark ages when it comes to AI, how would you get them motivated to actually explore it and then actually use it?
I, I think the way to open up people's kind of mind about what it can do is people need to just go and and use it for something. You've got to have this thing. The most simplest way of just trying out something, I would say, well, 6 months ago, 3 months ago, I would have said, have it write an email for you just to see what it can do. But I think the trendy thing right now is to create an image. People are creating images and
Right.
sharing them, right? Um, and I think that's helping. I come back to that. But I think if you have just something that you've seen somebody else use AI for, go just try it. Like you just got to experience what it can do, and then I think it'll be like, oh, I wonder if it can do this, and then you use it for that, and then oh, I wonder if it can do this, and you can start to learn like, okay, this maybe isn't where I would use it for, but this, absolutely, I'll use it for this, and you just got to experiment with it. I think to really start to formulate how it can be used for your everyday life.
So let's actually define, not technically. We have saying the word AI, and then there's Gen AI, and then there's stuff that you do with it. If you was to give a 1 minute or less sort of definition to a pastor who doesn't understand it, what is AI? What is Gen AI? And how a church, how could churches actually use it, and why, stuff like that.
Oh, what is AI? Uh, the non technical way of explaining AI, because AI, the term is used in a lot of different ways, right? Not, and I even use it just in kind of general big ways, but the way that I would describe what is AI, it's basically in its simplest form is your what how would I say this? It's your companion. It's your person who is an expert in everything. You could think about it that way. Uh, it's somebody who can help you in just about everything that you're doing. It I think that's the best way of explaining it technically, and that's if you think about it that way. Um, it can open you up to testing it out in different things. So I'm yeah. Does that Is
Oh
that
yeah,
a good
definitely.
non-technical answer, I guess, to
Yeah, exactly. I
what
mean,
is
it's a
AI?
broad term, right? And it was nothing new.
Yeah,
Computer science have been messing with this for years and years and years, but it was initially an abstract idea. But within AI, the study of it, there's Gen AI, where allows you to generate content like text, video, and
yeah,
stuff. And I think that's the world that you're in. And I think one of the things we want to clarify, we both agree on the number one thing that AI you shouldn't use AI, Gen AI, to actually generate. It could generate thought. It could actually, you can ask it to generate a sermon outline. You can ask it to, answer even Bible questions. That's the use of it. And that is something that you have to be measured. It's a tool and it can be helpful. Just like if you use Wikipedia to write a paper or do research, as much as useful as Wikipedia is in terms of summarizing things, if you just use Wikipedia, you're probably going to go down the wrong path because it's data that has been generated by millions and millions of people. And in fact, that's where the large learning model, which is this complex, system behind that powers AI and stuff, right? That's where it generates the content that it's answering you is based on a data set that these companies have pulled from all the online sources. So you kind of trust it as in terms of that, like take it blindly. I actually tried it once. I do preach from time to time. I'm a lay member, but I may be asked to preach, and that's a recent thing actually. But I asked it once to actually give me an outline for a sermon, and I was like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
is pretty interesting." But then it felt scary. But then you do get into that issue that the what it gives you is its interpretation of what the gospel is, and that's based on so much multiple sources. So we are not talking about using AI to generate your sermons or actually using it as a primary tool to answer Bible questions that you may have, because it might be biased, it may not actually be your specific worldview or your specific denominational view. That's not what we're talking about when using AI, but it is a tool, right?
Yeah, and the way I think the if you combine what we both said there is your way, but also thinking about okay, AI is your companion, right? It's a think about it as I don't know if I've never written a sermon, so this might be not the greatest example, but think about it as like you have a friend or somebody in the church that's helping you write this sermon, right? Sitting across the table, and you guys are brainstorming different ideas and that person has this great idea and you guys write it down, great, but I actually think we should probably adjust this a little bit here. Oh, great, working on it together. I really feel like AI can be that exact same thing. Like the AI is giving you ideas, but you should never take it as is. It should be filtered through your mind, through prayer. It should be filtered through all whatever you do on a typical writing your sermon. It should all be done the same way. You're just utilizing this tool to help you, basically.
It's a tool and it's
Yeah.
agnostic. It doesn't care, but it's like with anything, we're supposed to be wise and in terms of what we do. So I'm very measured in that approach. So your company. So let's talk about sermons. Um, that's probably what well, churches production of their weekend services usually take hours of prep, and the sermons, most pastors would say, it will take them between 10 and 20 hours with research, thinking about it, just to produce some content. For me, a better sermon would take about 10 hours, and that's thinking about it, writing it down, revising
Mhm.
it, and everything like that. So that 10 hours of work or more every week, and then you produce, say, 45 minutes to an hour content. Churches felt that that was enough because when you added live streaming, now that, okay, the church is being served, is online, being live streamed, I'm reaching millions of people for Christ.
Yep.
Technology is great. Where's the fallacy in that? Do you see any fault in that thinking in terms of that? And do you see an issue where churches are spending so much time to produce content and then leaving it like that and thinking that that's the gospel?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily wrong thinking as much as it is maybe not going far enough. I feel like you've produced this sermon. It's great on Sunday morning for your church, right? That was one step. That reaches a certain set of people. Then we got to the point of posting it online, right? And now you got the full sermon. Oh, great! You've reached this another set of people, whether it's people that missed that week or it's a new audience that just doesn't come to church. You've met you right. You're getting another bigger audience. Well, I think especially with the way technology and we're talking about AI, there's so many more things you can use that sermon for now. And like we made a couple steps. I think there's more that we can do now. There's a bigger audience that could be reached with more things that you can do. And social media is just it's one of them. It's an area that I think churches um, there's kind of a couple of buckets. There's a bucket of churches that just really don't utilize social media at all or very little, not to its potential. And then there's other churches who I think they are, but there's more that they can do. um, but they're maybe limited by the amount of time that they can devote to it. But there's pockets of more people out there that you could reach with your sermon, and yeah,
And the thing we know is that um, most people are not rewatching your sermons. There's exceptions if it's well produced, if it's
yep,
probably a popular church. Maybe your members are, if they miss the sermon, so if they may go back. But if you're producing, especially if you're producing the whole live stream from the beginning of the service to the end, which is the majority of services, right? They're not really going back and watch. And if you take that entire sermon and then post it on social media, nobody's necessarily going to watch an entire 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour
yep,
length of video while scrolling. So then it comes, then we have the whole idea of there's a attention span issue. So the target audience, of the seekers, the people you're trying to reach, in order for you to convince them to actually engage with more of your content, you have to have a hook, right? And you see, Jesus did this very wonderfully. He did not overwhelm them. So, what is the alternative if posting your entire sermon on social media, like resharing it on Facebook or something like that? If we know based on the data it doesn't work as well, the millions of views, you don't get that at all.
yep.
What would be the next alternative churches? What is working right now?
Yeah, I think one of the areas that you can really capture a newer audience is by using the way that people are interacting with video the most right now, and those are short clips. It's been around for a little while now, but it's still one of the most popular ways that people are watching videos, and that's Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. Uh, there there's people watching hours and hours of these videos, right? In short form though, not 30-minute sermons. They're watching short videos. And so yeah, but I think the church, to your point, is set up so well for this. They have the best opportunity because they're already making this content. There's lots of great short 20, 30, 40-second moments in every sermon that you can produce all kinds of pieces of content to put inside of those reels and TikTok. So um, I, I'm churches are reaching a broader and bigger audience in this way, because it in addition to not only just posting it on social media, if you post them as reels, you're reaching this whole new audience. They don't When you post, you're not they don't necessarily go to people that are following your page. You're opening yourself up to the whole world, really, and they have the opportunity to reach thousands, hundreds of thousands. So it's a great opportunity for church.
For sure, and as you mentioned, so you some short clips, and we are familiar with that. And because when you post a video, if you share a link, let's say if it's linked into YouTube of your sermon, it doesn't play well. You have to leave the platform you're on and go over
Yep.
to YouTube, or you can take the full sermon and then upload it to these platforms individually, like Facebook, etc. But the video format is not really optimized, as you said, for the way how people consume content. So from TikTok, but even before that, people may not know Vine, I would say, started it where it really
Yeah.
started that short form clip. You can, people might say, okay, the younger generation, their attention span is messed up. They need to get this word, they need the whole sermon. But I think what we're saying is you need to hook them in first, just like Jesus met the woman at the well, right? And she had a simple conversation first, got her hooked in, and then eventually give her the whole gospel, right? Would you say that's what you see in churches are doing?
Yeah, I see them as steps. My church, even in my church, they talk about the baby steps, right? Or the steps in your um, spiritual walk, right? It's like it if you are this person who's never or very rarely watches a sermon, and you're asking them to be their very first step to watch a full sermon, like that that's too far. What you need is steps to get them to that full sermon, right? So it's short clips, hook them into the way that you're talking, you're communicating, your church talks. Maybe the next step is um, uh, a little bit of a longer video, or it's some other interaction point, and then the next step is the sermon. So it's not taking them from, oh, you're a you don't go to church, you should watch my sermon. It's get them used to you first, learning about the way that you talk, and then getting them to the sermon would be the last step.
So that's where short clips come in, right? Short video clips comes in.
Yep.
And as we are saying, that is not only the short video clips that does well, there's a format that is involved in that, because most people are consuming content on their mobile devices. So these short clips have a particular dimensions that work well, and they have a particular length typically that work well. That if you're within a certain length as well as a format, they are optimized and they are posted in a special format, as you mentioned, called Reels on TikTok, which is primarily
Yep.
that, then YouTube Shorts. And I think we are seeing that these companies are actually prioritizing those special shorter videos in those formats, right?
Yep.
So that churches should actually consider doing that more. So we are talking about taking your sermon, your longer version of your sermon or your service, and you can then go take that video, edit that in some editor if you wanted, and then you can repost those for free, right, on those platforms. And if
Yep.
you have the time and you have a ministry, that's actually more valuable than only streaming your service and thinking that's the end of it. What are some of the tips that you would recommend to churches when they're posting these video shorts, right, that are optimized primarily for mobile device, so they're more landscape and they're within, I know, for example, Reels 90 seconds, YouTube is 3 minutes, TikTok is longer, but you want to keep it as short, especially the initial ones. What would you recommend? What are the additional tips that churches should consider having have the short? What else should they put into the caption or the content in order to draw that person into the next step? What are you seeing working for churches?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that you really want to make sure you get right. The very basic, maybe this is the most obvious, but I'll say it anyways. It needs to be in the vertical format, like you said. Everybody's watching them on their phone, right? In this way, like this. So they need to be in the video form or the vertical format. Uh, a lot are watched on mute, so you want to make sure that the captions are there, so that if they are watching on mute, and if they see the caption, they try to get them to unmute because it looks interesting. Uh, the length, that is an important one. The shorter, the better. I never really say that there's an absolute like best length of time, as much as it is making sure that you're keeping the attention. So if you know people are going to swipe to the next one in 2 seconds if you're not keeping their attention, what I say is make sure that the video is keeping attention. If the video ever goes off track somewhere, a side note, or it um, um, repeats itself, or isn't staying engaging, people are going to swipe. So stay away from that. So if you can say the same thing in 10 seconds, I would stick to 10 seconds. If you can stay engaging but you need 30, 45, 60 seconds to say it, do that. So I think the better indicator is the engagement level than it is the length of time. Uh, but what is really important about your video is that first few seconds is really important. You need to grab their attention. So don't you don't want to build up to the arc of the video. You want it to be right at the start, is the most important kind of attention grabbing thing, and then the whole video clip needs to be about that topic.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think if somebody doesn't understand this from a church perspective, if you're using social media, you can kind of understand the videos you look at versus the videos you skip, right? And what we have been talking about so far is taking your sermon, because you are spending hours every week producing content, and it's weekly, at least once a week. and then repurposing that into a short form video and following the tips that you said in order to reach more people to hook them in. All right. You can also then also produce content without having it come from a sermon, and that's something that many people have been doing for a long time. So that's not the new part. You can take your video, record it, and that's a good strategy. That's actually additional tips that you should be doing. But what we really focus on is you're already producing the content. If you're a smaller church, which most churches are, you might not have a team to come up with creative ideas. You just might not have the time. We are saying take your video, your long form video that most people are not going to go back and watch it, and new visitors and seekers are really not going to go back and watch it unless you have a really big market. Take that, cut it up, and use it as a hook. Now, there are certain tips and tricks that you need to follow, as Corey have shared. There is understanding scripting and understanding how to phrase things. You might want to cut a piece from the back and then bring it forward because that's the engaging part. And right, so that's what some of the things. So, but that do take time. Now, if you have the time, it's a valuable ministry, right? But this brings us to what Corey actually and his team have done. So, what it is you are using? What is Sermon Shots? You are the co-founder of Sermon Shots. How does that help with this whole process?
Yeah, so really a lot of those things that I just or all those things that I just said were basically put into sermon shots into account as we make those clips for you. So it's a software that when you upload your sermon, and one of the things that it produces is those short clips. So it takes into account trying to find those great 2 to 3 second moments and building a clip around that moment, putting it vertical, putting the captions on there, allowing you to edit it too, because like we said, don't just take AI's word for it. You can look at it and edit it, add things, put your own design, all that in there. But it's a really simple platform that makes it easy for even non-video people to produce these things.
So what I'm hearing is that look, you can actually take your sermon if your church don't have a budget. If you're in a particular area like my country, where I'm from, Trinidad and Tobago, most people are not going to pay for services like sermon shots to be able to edit that. And that's fine. You could do it. There are tips that you should do. But what sermon shots and other software like that does, it does a lot. I don't think we have time to identify how much things, because I used to do this as I shared with you 5, 10 years ago at my church. I used to take the video and I had some knowledge and I would edit it. Then I would understand scripting and sequencing. Then you have to turn it into the vertical format. That's difficult. I didn't used to do that all the time, but you are using AI to power a lot of this stuff in the back end. Where, for example, there's this tracking where it can track the person, right? Tell me about this AI crew thing. Um, how does that help with taking a typical recorded sermon where the pastor is moving back and forth and then being, how does that really help? And how much time you think that is saving somebody like me who might want to kind of edit it myself?
Yeah, AI camera crew. It's one of the favorited features. It so you need it in vertical format, right? We talked about this vertical format, but the original video is in this horizontal format. And if you don't have a camera that's tracking with the pastor to keep him right in the center, which you don't always need, right? Because you have this whole area. So if he moves over here, he's still on the horizontal video, but he would not be in this vertical video. And so what we do is we basically take this and we move it with the pastor as he moves on the screen. So uh, basically, it's tracking his face and it's just moving along with him as he moves on the screen.
And people connect with people. I do some video
Yeah.
shots for myself, my personal ministry, and I realize videos that have me on the camera, as ugly as I am, does better. So as much engagement that you have with the pastor or the speaker in focus is good, and your software is doing all of that for you with a click of a button.
Yep. Yep. You just turn it on and it does it for you automatically. And and to your point, faces, you're right. They are attention grabbers. Netflix did a study on this very early on, And if you go and you look at their thumbnails on Netflix, and it's a lot on YouTube now too, right? But if you look at, it's almost always faces. And they did a study where they would randomly test all these different thumbnails, and almost always the face of one of the actors on the page is what actually got more clicks. So definitely.
What I like about solution like yours is that even if you don't have the best video production, so what is not necessarily needed is to have a perfect produced live stream. So if you have things like audio issues, if you have the pastor may not really following a script based on the camera, the pastor, the speaker can be free. What are the tools that the software does that helps save time and frustration in terms of, let's say, audio issues and things like that?
Um, if you have audio issues, we do have a few things built in where we'll reformat the video for you. There's a setting. It's called FreeSync, and it does a lot of general things of fixing some of those things. It's not 100% perfect. Can't solve every issue, but it does help solve some of those issues.
Excellent. And so that's very powerful. So you also have sermon shots. There's sermon send, and then there's sermon live.
Yeah.
But there's something recently that came out a few weeks ago that Facebook is no longer keeping your church live stream. And for many churches, Facebook is still like the number one go-to place in terms of
Mm,
social video and social engagement, right?
yep.
YouTube is big, but in terms of getting people to engage, a lot of churches kind of probably only have Facebook. They might be streaming from Zoom to Facebook, but their sermons are no longer going to remain. Could you tell me a little bit about that story there and what you think churches should be doing and how the sermon send one of your products help?
Yeah. So you're right. Facebook, I think, is only maintaining 30 days of your live videos now, I think, is what it is.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I think it's okay, because I think really where we should probably have our archive of our sermons is on our website. The church has a website. Put them on your website. I know there's some logistical issues sometimes with churches. It's an added step. And it's funny. Sermon Send actually wasn't originally intended for this exact purpose, but it works perfectly for it. Really, Sermon Send, the way that I'll briefly explain it, and then I'll tell you how it can solve this problem too, is Sermon Shots makes all this content, right? We talked about clips, but it repurposes it into all kinds of other content too: 5-day devotional, images, blog post, audio, all kinds of things. And so one of the things that we were starting to realize is churches didn't really have a place to put all that stuff. They all the time. There wasn't a great place. And so what we wanted to do was create this like single page that was devoted to your sermon of all this stuff, so that you could send this to your congregation, and then your congregation can read the 5-day devotional, watch the sermon, they can see all the video clips, all this is there, and then they can share it as well. Um, and coincidentally, it actually solves this problem then too. So when you upload a sermon onto Sermon Shots, it automatically creates this sermon send page for you, and it creates an archive of everything you've ever uploaded onto Sermon Send. And so you can watch this along with all of the repurposed content. The sermon sits there too, so anybody can go back and watch the whole sermon as well.
If you don't have never edited a video, I think we didn't do this justice. The time it takes to edit a video, you rewatch it, it probably takes, for every minute clip you make, it takes an hour of your time to do it decently fine. So that's number one. But then after you edit that clip, you then have to upload it somewhere, right? And then after you upload it there, you don't really want to use that link. You don't want to use necessarily the YouTube link or the Vimeo link. You want to probably put that on your a page that you control that has additional call to actions. Because at the day, the video format, or as you mentioned, images, blogs, these are hooks that is supposed to lead to an action where the person is going to opt into a virtual class or opt in to fill out a form or RSVP or plan your visit for your church. So that's the ultimate goal when you put the whole strategy together. But the thing is, once you start to get into We know you're supposed to be doing shorter forms and repurposing your content, whether it's text, images, and stuff. A solution like Sermon Shot does all of that for you. Again, it's not going to be put it in, close my eye, and spit everything out, but it's going to do a huge percentage of that so that every week you can consistently do that. This makes sense because before Sermon Shots or before all of this, I was doing this for my church. What, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Meaning, I used to take the video by myself, and it's not a church. It's a different structure where the only paid staff is the pastors. Everybody is volunteers, and I had my business, and but I was trying to implement a digital strategy, and I'm like, nobody's gonna watch your 3 hour stream, right?
Yeah.
I was a communication leader there, leader. And so I was to take people really liked going back and finding the things they did. So they love the children. We have something called children's story, like a children's nugget. They love if there's special, we call it special music, or a guest singer comes in, they like that part. So I would clip that up. And then obviously you'll clip the sermon from the live stream and then have that separate. And that did really well on Facebook and people loved it. But I probably did that for what? I don't know, a month or 2 months max, and then it's like that's a lot. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
right? So then I'm thinking about sermon shots. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. This totally
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. We heard that story a lot about it's a lot of work. It's a
A
lot of
lot of
work.
work.
I
A
don't
lot
have
of work.
anybody. We can't do it consistently. We can, I heard a lot of that over and over. Yeah.
And now with sermon send, what you're saying is that it actually hosts that for you. So then that's additional workload. You have to upload it, wait for it, embed it. So it cuts down on the time that you spend working on these administrative tasks so you can
Mm.
focus, would you say, on ministry and things like that. And then you have actually recently launched Sermon Live, which is some of my churches that I go to in my denomination, it's Spanish English. So it's like it'll be a smaller church and they don't have enough of either one to be a separate entity. So they will have services where there's a translator. And
Mm.
some of those, it's cool, but it's not the same, right? It's not the same to do that. Or even when you're watching online, if in other countries, if you produce some content, you are actually not reaching as much people as you can because you're only speaking in English. So tell me, does
Yeah.
where the sermon live is right now, and what do you hope that to be in the future, and how churches can use that?
Yeah, we actually just officially launched it today too. We didn't plan that, but it's just coincidentally, right? Sermon Live is live translation of your sermon. So uh, the church simply doesn't really have to do a whole lot. They just simply put their audio feed into Sermon Live, and when they do that, the congregation just uses their phone, no app, nothing. That's just a URL that never changes week to week. They go to it and they can read along, and or put in earbuds and listen it in their language. So whatever language the church wants to provide, you can listen to.
Is it currently at the stage where it sounds like the speaker, or you just get a translation, a written translation and a voice translation based on maybe a voice, an AI voice you pick?
Yeah, it's a right now it's an AI voice. It'll definitely be expanding. The technology is getting there to be able to have your voice. One of the things about having your voice it does slow things down. So having a AI voice, I guess, really speeds it up, and so we're able to have that live translation part in under 5 seconds. So uh, it's
That's
really fast.
huge. That's
Yeah.
huge because I've seen others that do have their voice synthesization. They do slow it down. But in
Yep.
terms of reaching more people, in fact, most people who produce content, they're already people who want to listen to it in their own language. They might understand, let's say, English good enough to follow, but they would prefer to be able to hear it in this language. That's huge. And I'm excited for the gospel because this is going to allow us to reach as more people for Christ in real time or engage with them. I do have two other quick things for you
Yep.
before we wrap up. What do you see as the future for AI and innovations based on your experience, based on what you're doing? What are you seeing in the future?
Whew, what's happening in the future? Um, hmm, uh, Looking back a year, 3 years, I would have never expected where we're at now. So it's so hard to predict. What I typically I think about is just it, AI is moving so fast. I think that if everybody just sort of stays on top of it, there's there's going to be so many things that we're not thinking about that are going to be happening in the next couple of years. I do think that the all the models, everything from images to the text to videos, are all improving so fast that even what you see today, if you're like, okay, this is great, but it's not quite the quality, uh, that quality is coming. So in anything that you might say about that, that quality is coming because things have improved so much. So I would say continue to test and think about ways that it can be used because it may only be months before it's ready for your kind of standard, I guess. That may not be a perfect answer, but that's my way of not having a prediction, I guess. But
No, I think that's good. And I think my approach, I am very more measured in what I do. And I tell churches to be measured. You do not have to adapt everything that comes out. So if there's things that concerns you as the technology change, there is things that is concerning about it. Every technology has been used for good and bad, right? But from the gospel perspective, God wants us to focus on how we can use this tool to advance the gospel and let him worry about the other aspect. And as it change, you can still do your research. You don't have to adapt everything. So if you're still concerned, I think you should be comforted that you are the ultimate person with the Holy Spirit and God's guidance to make that decision. But as it stands right now, AI is a tool. It should not be used to replace that you seeking God's guidance and sermon prep or studying the Bible. It's not supposed to spit out for you theology. However, if you use it as a tool, it saves you tons of time so you can actually focus on ministry and meeting the needs of your local audience. Um, Corey, would you agree?
absolutely, I
And
agree.
for short fun questions for you, what's your favorite thing you like to eat? Favorite food?
Ooh, I love to smoke all kinds of different meats. My favorite thing right now is smoked pork steak.
Okay. What's your favorite state right now?
My
Oh,
favorite
yes,
state.
state in the United States. Your favorite state to visit or to that you have enjoyed? Is it
Um, Good question.
you don't want to start a war?
I, I, I love my state of Indiana.
Okay,
Um,
go
I
Indiana.
visit I visit Tennessee a lot. I like Tennessee, Nashville. Uh, but I do like cooler states. So
Cooler
I
states.
like
Okay.
being yeah, I like being up north rather than south.
Okay. Well, we probably wouldn't be neighbors. I am in Texas, so I kind of ran from Northeast. When I first came here, it was too cold for me. Do
Okay.
you do any sports at all? Do you have any favorite teams that you look at? Football, basketball,
Ooh,
college?
you really want me to get people riled up, don't you?
Oh no, no, no,
I I'll tell you, I love the Cowboys. Love watching football. And then a recent thing for my family, I have two girls and a boy, but my two oldest are girls that love basketball, and we got into the Fever right here, being in Indianapolis. So we
no.
go and watch a
Perfect
lot of
time.
the Fever
Perfect
games.
time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she definitely brought more interest back to
yeah,
basketball on a whole, but also to women's basketball.
yep.
Well, Corey, I've taken up your time. I really do appreciate it, your patience. I hope God continue to bless your ministry. Clearly, this is not a promotional video. You don't need it. I know you guys have grown, but I hope that most people who have joined, who are looking at this content, could understand, get something from it and implement something. So is there anything else you want to share with them, like a final closing words in terms of AI, short form, or anything that you want to give to our audience as a charge to move forward?
I would just say for short form video specifically, if you have any like hesitation to it, just try it once and see what it does. We get a lot of people that say, "Oh, I couldn't believe how well my very first one did, reaching all these people." So, um, if if it's okay, I we make 2 clips for you personally for free, no signing up needed. We'd be happy to make those for you, so you can just test it out and see how well it will do.
Well, thank you, Corey. I'll put all the links in the information. I definitely tried it myself, the 2 free links, and they were really good. So I definitely recommend give it a try. And it's not as complicated. It's actually much easier than you think. And you never know how that hook, that video clip could have led someone to actually consume more of your content, come to your local church or a local church, and eventually make it to heaven. So
Thank you.